of time. And I thought it was very, very simple for Wesley, the American Grandmaster, having a little difficulty putting Richard Rapport away, as he only has 7 minutes, even though it's move 37. So it's not a big factor. You're a rook ahead. This is kind of remarkable. I thought that Richard might well have resigned, and I considered the move rook g3 a kind of a spike check type of move, like one final last hurrah. But taking his time, and he's finally played rook takes g3. Well, queen takes h1 simply runs into rook g1, and that's all she wrote. So I'm assuming bishop takes g3 check, king d2 is what Wesley has in mind. Well, it should be winning, of course. Wait a minute, why isn't everything winning? Why don't we just take on g3 as well? Takes, king e2. Let's be greedy. We're a rook ahead, and I don't see anything. So now I'm very curious as to why Wesley took so long. Maybe he thinks that queen takes h1, rook g1, queen takes f3 is not as easy as and queen takes h1 was played, rook g1 as expected. We can imagine queen takes f3 again. Well, I'm very curious why why Wesley would think that this is difficult. I don't think it's difficult. Simply knight takes f4, grabbing material, just trading off. And let's see, he has played queen takes f3. Wesley so to play after queen takes f3. I'm just curious. I want to go back a second. After we saw this move rook g3, one of the things I thought that Wesley could do to win the game easily was knight takes f4. Let me just see if I've miscalculated something. Knight takes f4, I thought, was a decent way of winning as well. e5 check, king would have dropped back, and maybe this simply isn't mate after queen f5. It sure looks very, very good, but that didn't happen. Let me just instead update, and we do have this position. I'm just looking earlier if a knight takes f4 wasn't simpler than the line chosen by Wesley. This is good enough. I mean, a rook is a rook. Of course, there's only one thing to not play. Don't play the move rook f1 and allow knight d3 check. That would be more than embarrassing. But knight takes f4 strikes me as one very good way of reeling in the entire point. And I'm sure there are many other winning options as well. All right, well, we'll let Wesley find the most decisive win. And let me look around and check in again on the game of Wei Yi and Ian. When we left it, it wasn't as simple as I thought it was going to be. And Whenever you're on the defense and your opponent is attacking, one of your best ways of handling an attack, take his pieces. Get the trade off, get those attacking pieces off the board, and that is what he has done. Okay, and what other games? I will go on break after I see the... Well, nothing to be said, actually. It's a rook. It's a whole rook. Also, we have a fantastic event along with the Masters, of course. We're going to go back and recap the position after move 32, rook g2, queen b1. This is a position that chess coaches in the future are going to I'm sure Mark Dvoretsky, if he was still with us, would use this as a vision exercise. Essentially, after the move rook g2, you're thinking to yourself, how do you take this black queen, which is sitting over here on d7, and transfer it to the square f2? You think, well, it's going to have to go through the f7 and g6 route, until you realize there's this extraordinary move in the position of c7, c6, you take the pawn on c6, and suddenly queen a7, and oh my goodness, rook f2 check followed by knight takes e4 double check would have ended the game in black's favor in just simply modern brilliancy. It would have been an extraordinary finish, and it was unfortunate that Richard missed this idea of queen a7. Again, everything coordinating. These doubled rooks on the H file are useless, and black would have won a fantastic game. Instead, what happened in the game was that they had reached this position, and when Wesley had put his queen on b1, he did it with the purpose of defending his pawn on b5. And Richard simply had forgotten that the knight on d3, the square d3 is protected by the queen. So when he got this position after knight e7, he was forced to give up an entire rook and play his attack, a rook down, and he was lost. Wesley captured all of the black pieces, and after the move knight d3 has captured the knight, and he has just played the move knight g8. This was my analysis, and he's just played the move knight g8. And unfortunately for Richard, his king is now being checkmated by rook, knight, and pawn, as black is facing knight coming to f6 check. So let's just play a move for black. It doesn't matter. This is white's threat in the position. Checkmate. And if Richard brings his king to h6, then simply h5 and rook g6 checkmate is on the agenda. So after knight g8, I'm expecting a move, for example, like queen f3, pardon me, to stop the knight from coming to f6, then simply h5, followed by rook g6, followed by knight f6, and Wesley So winning streak, or pardon me, his streak of undefeated games where he has not been defeated will be intact. So a very, very lucky escape for Wesley So. Now, I promised you some checkmates. Let me deliver on my promise. We'll go to the challenger section, and we'll start with the game of Ilias Miran. He has checkmated against a lower rated opponent. It was White's king who walked into a checkmate, and He really needed to show his talent here, I can tell you. H3 takes, rook came up, rook came over, and somehow Benjamin seemed oblivious to what was taking place. And there you have it. Very nice little checkmate occurring in the game of Benjamin Bach. F5 checkmate is on Black's agenda as well. If you block like this with rook e6, then comes check, and the same checkmate has occurred. So a big setback for Dutch chess here as Benjamin Bach goes down to Vladimir Dobrov. All right, let's go back to, was there another game actually? No, that was Eric Hansen lost. So a very bloody round in the challengers. I see one draw only and one game in progress. Let me check in on Jordan Van Forest. A potential for another checkmate, by the way, in this game. For Ian, earlier in the game, there's no question he was losing. And we're going back and looking at the monitor. We see Richard struggling against Wesley. So let me bring that game up on my screen. Where are you, Richard? There you are at the top. And indeed, as expected, Queen F3 was played, H5, the same mating pattern as mentioned, Rook G6, Knight F6 is coming, King H8, Rook G6, and there we have it, a handshake. And, okay, let me just, again, we'll start from Queen F3, H5, King H7, Rook G6, check, Knight F6, check, and after King E3, Richard crashes to defeat. Wesley So, winner, Wesley at +1 now, getting himself back up in the leader group, and I'm sure Richard is going to be devastated when his chess engines point out one of the great brilliancies of the round, what could have been. There you get a view of the playing hall. And let me just see what other games are in progress. Pardon me, that's the Wesley game. Luke Van Velde. Well, Luke has been struggling, and now it's a good time to resign.